All right. Welcome, everybody. This is the Reality Czars podcast, and we're your hosts, Nate and Tony.
Hello.
And man, we got a really cool guest on. I'm really excited to talk to him. We got the great Micah Dank. Micah, you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself and where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Real Mr. Dank, spell out Mr. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Micah Dank. I've just been out doing podcasts for the last 2 years, just doing as many as I could.
Nice, man. I've seen your work. It's really fascinating. It's slightly triggering because I believe I believe the Bible, but it's awesome, man. And it made me rethink a couple things. And I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see your slides because I've only ever heard you audio. I haven't seen the pictures that you show. So yeah, I'm really excited to go through the whole thing.
Sounds good.
Yeah, man.
Cool.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
So anytime you want to take the reins, you can take the reins, my friend.
All right, on.
You want to talk a little bit about what got you into this? Like, what made you question? Were you ever a Christian? Like, did you have a Christian background at all?
No, I was brought up religious, but I never took to it. I always thought there was something off, and when I discovered astrotheology, I realized that's what I wanted to teach. That's what I wanted to do. It was like my big aha moment when I turned 30.
Interesting.
And I've just been doing that for the last 9 years.
Okay.
That's cool, man. I mean, have you ever thought about making your own church of astrotheology?
No. This is anti-church, anti-religion.
Yeah.
And stuff. It would go kind of against the work to start a church on it.
Okay. That's fascinating. Yeah, I mean, I actually had questions on that, and maybe I'll pipe up later because I was curious about just exactly the way you interpret the Bible, and that's fascinating. So I see that you're sending this thing here. I will add it to the stream. Right. There we go. Okay. So how do we start, man?
So do you see my presentation right now?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right. So I start by saying, employ your time in improving yourself by other men's writings, so that you shall come easily by what others have labored hard for. So I've basically put almost 10 years into this so far, and I've narrowed it down to a bunch of different PowerPoints, but this is my main one. This is the intro to it. This is kind of like going through everything.
Awesome.
It's important to know that what I talk about in astrology in the Bible is just one of 7 different sciences. See, the scriptures are metaphysical, astrological, anatomical, alchemical, spiritual, esoteric, and mythology. They are not literal, historical, reality, and they're not even original. As you'll see.
I'm just kidding. Keep going.
All right, so this is astrotheology in the Bible, and if you look at the zodiac wheel, Capricorn's at the bottom, Cancer's at the top. This is how the zodiac wheel should look. And it goes back 40,000 years to the Lascaux Caves. The Lascaux Caves are these caves that they found. A bunch of teenagers went into them and deep into them. And when they went deep into them, and they went to the back wall, they found some paintings on the wall.
Was this in France?
Yes, Lascaux.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah.
You see here, world's oldest cave painting shows human understood complex astronomy 40,000 years ago. Okay, Lascaux cave painting 17,000 years ago, but it goes back 40,000 years. When they went to the back of the cave, they saw something like this. You see on the top left, you see the bull. On the right, you see the lion with the many faces of the lion. On the bottom, you see the horse. And in astrology, the bull is Taurus, the lion is Leo, and the horse is Sagittarius. It's just missing the guy with the bow and arrow on top. Okay, what they did was they carbon dated the wall, which came out to about 40,000 years, plus or minus 5,000 years. And biblical literalists will tell you that carbon dating is not accurate, and that's kind of half true. Up to 50,000 years, it is accurate, though. After that, when you get into the hundreds of thousands and the millions of years, not so much. They have other uranium datings that they do, but when you use carbon-14 dating, it's accurate up to 50,000 years. So this came out to about 40,000 years plus or minus 5,000 years. What they did is they brought in an astrologer with a computer, and what they did was they rewound the sky back. with the computer program 40,000 years to see what they saw. And what happened was when they did that, they were able to see the constellations and how they were 40,000 years ago. What they did was they printed it out and they superimposed it on the wall, and all the constellations lined up to what they printed out. So they've actually known about this for 40,000 years at least. Now, in the Bible, there's questions that you can ask that a lot of people have questions about. Jesus was able to heal the blind, how he walked on water, how he turned water into wine, why he had 12 disciples, why he was betrayed with a kiss by Judas, why he was dead for 3 days, why his birthday is on December 25th. This is all astrology, and I'm going to show you that. Genesis 1:14 says, "Let lights appear in the sky to separate the day from the night. Let them be signs to mark the seasons, days, and years." And that's basically what the zodiac is. That's what the zodiac does. Okay? Now, we're going to go through the 12 signs of the zodiac. I'm going to give you keywords to keep an eye out for.
I'm taking notes.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, I'm taking notes.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you keywords for each sign that make sense when I explain the sign. And then we're going to use that to decode. So the first sign is Aquarius, which is represented by the man with the water pitcher. It's a story of Zeus and Aquarius. So the story of Aquarius goes something like this. Zeus saw a 14-year-old blonde boy on Earth that he really wanted in heaven. And the father, wouldn't give it to him. So Zeus ended up bartering with him. He gave him land, he gave him money, he gave him animals, this, that, and the other thing. He took the boy up to heaven. And the boy started serving everybody with this water pitcher that was filled with something called ambrosia, which was the nectar of the gods. It's what the gods drank. What ended up happening was he got fed up with doing this boy, after a while. So what he did was he went to the edge and he poured it over, like this picture, the man pouring the water over. He poured the ambrosia over. What it did was it caused the flood on Earth, which is where the Greeks get their flood story. Everyone has a flood story, remember? Mm-hmm. So Zeus ends up very upset with the boy, and he's going to punish him. But in a moment of self-reflection, he realized that the boy was kind of brought up there against his will, and he didn't really want to be up there. So what he does is he just immortalizes him as the constellation Aquarius. Okay, so whenever you hear the word son of man, because this is the sign of the man, so it can be used to describe a boy, a man, or an old man. The same way Virgo is the sign of the woman, could be used to describe a girl, an older woman, or a young woman. Okay, so whenever you hear son of man, man, baptism, water pitcher, fountain, stream, river, pond, lake, water-related things, you're talking about Aquarius. Okay? Now, the first sign in the zodiac is actually Aries, which starts the year. Okay, I started in Aquarius because that's January. That's our beginning of our year. Okay, but in the ancient days, the year was started in Aries, and the Jewish people actually start their new year in Libra, and I'll explain that too. Okay, so and Aquarius is also not a water sign. Okay, Pisces is the water sign, but because there's water in the sign of Aquarius, it could be used in the Bible to describe water. Pisces is the sign of the two fish in the water. So all these previous water examples at the bottom, they apply for Pisces. Aries is the ram, and in Aries you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. It's a 12-hour day, a 12-hour night. It's also the Passover. So the Passover has three meanings. In Christianity, the Passover becomes the resurrection of God's Son, S-U-N. In Judaism, the Passover is when the angel of death passes over all the Egyptian houses, and anyone that didn't have the lamb or the ram, Aries the ram, they didn't have the lamb's blood on their door, the firstborn son gets killed. In astrotheology, the Passover is when the sun passes over the equator and back on its way up to its height in the summer solstice. So whenever you hear ram, lamb, shepherd, or ram's horn, you're talking about Aries, okay?
Okay.
Taurus is the bull. And when you look at the sky and you see Taurus during the season where it's supposed to be, you know that you need to put the plow on the bull so that you can plant the seed so you can harvest in Virgo and Libra. So whenever you hear bull, ox, calf, or cow being the female bull, you're talking about Taurus. Incidentally, each one of these signs is called a house. So it's like the house of Taurus, the house of Aries. Okay? Gemini is the twins. It's the story of Castor and Pollux Troy, whose sister was Helen of Troy. It's the story of Achilles. So this is another Greek story. Whenever you hear twins or brothers, you're talking about Gemini. Cancer is the crab. It's a sideways moving creature. Just as the sun rises a degree on its axis starting on December 25th, it stops on June 21st, and for 3 days it rises to the same degree, and it's moving sideways. And then on June 25th, it lowers a degree. Okay? And the crab in the ancient Egyptian time was known as the scarab. So whenever you hear crab or beetle, they're talking about Cancer. Leo is the king. He's the lion. He's the king of the jungle. The ruling planet of Leo is actually the sun. So whenever you hear lion, lioness, or cub, you're talking about Leo. Virgo is the woman holding the wheat stalk. So remember before when you said that you planted Taurus, well, the virgins would cultivate the wheat in Virgo in order to make the bread for the year. So whenever you hear virgin, wheat, grain, seed, barley, corn, grainy things that you harvest, that's in Virgo. Then Libra is the justice. It's the scales, it's the balance, it's the just one. The reason it's the justice is because it judges God's sun as it passes over the fall equinox and begins its descent into winter, into cold, into death. The Jews always celebrate the new year on the fall equinox, okay? 8 days after the Jewish New Year, you have something called Yom Kippur, which is the day of judgment, just like Libra is the judge. And what the Jews do is they fast and they don't drink and they go to temple all day and pray so that God can keep them in the book of life for another year. Libra is also wine season, which is when you plant for the grapes in Taurus, you can press the wine here. So whenever you hear law, judge, justice, the just one, divorce, marriage, court, lawly things, you're talking about Libra. Whenever you're talking about wine, vineyard, wine press, grapes, juice, they're talking about Libra. It's also olive oil season. You press the olives in Libra in order to get the oil. So whenever you hear olive or oil, you're talking about Libra. And Scorpio is the scorpion, and he is the betrayer. When a scorpion bites you, it leaves an imprint in your skin that looks like a pair of lips. It's why the mafia has the kiss of death. That's where that comes from. And it's why Jesus was betrayed by Judas with a kiss. Because Judas could have betrayed him in any way. He could have given him a hug. He could have pointed him out. He could have put him in a headlock. He could have done a million things. He could have stoned him. But he didn't. He betrayed him with a kiss, okay, which was very odd. But the kiss is because he's Scorpio, the betrayer, okay? And that's why, because the scorpion bites you and it leaves a pair of lips in your skin. So the sun is judged in Libra and it's betrayed in Scorpio. Finally, in Sagittarius, this is where the man with the bow and the arrow shoot the sun, inflict further punishment on the sun, in fact, killing it. Okay? Because on December 21st, the sun is at its lowest point. So I just got finished telling you guys that the sun is at its highest point on June 21st, and then it walks sideways like the crab. Well, on December 21st, the sun is done lowering a degree a day, and it's at its lowest point. So the ancients used to see it, and it wouldn't even rise above the horizon, so they would say the sun was dead. And it would walk sideways for 3 days, and it wouldn't raise. So they would say God's son was dead for 3 days. When on December 25th, or the birth of Jesus, you can argue that Jesus was born during Passover. You could argue that he was born September 11th. You can argue all these things, but this is the science. This is the science and mythology behind all that, okay, behind the stories. So December 25th, it rises an additional degree. The sun is born again. God's light of the world, the only begotten son, is born again. So whenever you hear horse, bow and arrow, spear, or horseman, you're talking about Sagittarius. Then finally you have Capricorn, which is the goat, because he likes to climb the mountain. And if you look at the zodiac wheel on the right, you'll see Capricorn's at the bottom. Now imagine the sun walking a degree a day alongside the axis of this wheel on its way back to its height in Cancer, which is the summer solstice. It starts to climb in Capricorn. It starts to climb up the mountain. Just like the goats are the best at climbing up the mountain. So those are the 12 signs. Those are the key words that we're going to use. And do you have any questions?
I think so. I got Aquarius, I got Aries, Pisces, Taurus, Gemini, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpius, Sagittarius, and Capricorn. Did I miss any?
Right.
Okay.
Say it again.
I think I've got my Aquarius, my Aries, my Pisces. I got Pisces here, and all I got for them was water. Is that correct, or is there more?
Aquarius and Pisces is water.
Aquarius and Pisces are water. Okay. So, okay. I think I got it, man. Taurus, Gemini, I got my Leo, got my Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Capricorn.
Okay. Now, what is your sign?
I'm a Virgo.
You're a Virgo. Okay. So look at the zodiac wheel here. Okay, I'm going to talk a lot about connecting signs and opposing signs. You're
Okay.
Virgo. Your two connecting signs are Leo and Libra. Your opposing sign is Pisces. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to get into a lot of that because a lot of these hidden biblical codes are they deal with opposing signs and connecting signs. Now, there's names for Jesus that he's given in the church. Okay, but Jesus being the S-O-N of God, being the S-U-N of God. Okay, Jesus is the sun. When the sun is in Capricorn, the goat, he's called the scapegoat of Israel. When the sun is in the man sign Aquarius, he's called the son of man. When the sun is in Pisces, the two fish, he's the fisherman of men. And that's why he could feed the masses with two fish. When the sun is in Aries, the ram, he's known as the Lamb of God or the Good Shepherd. When the sun is in Leo, he's known as the Lion of Judah. The lady holding the stalk of wheat, Virgo, he's born of a virgin and he's called the bread of life. Libra, the scales of justice, he's known as the just one. Then he's betrayed in Scorpio. He dies in Sagittarius on December 21st. And that's also why he's worshipped on the sun day. Okay? Now I'm going to draw your eyes to this picture on the left that I just pulled off the internet. The sun behind his head, that white face, that same face that he always has, the two fingers up like this, the heart on the outside of the body, and the crown of thorns. Okay? The sun is always behind Jesus because he represents the sun. Look at any picture of Jesus, anything from the manger all the way up till his 30s. Look up pictures of Jesus online, and you'll see the sun's always there. Now, sometimes there's a Knights Templar cross in the sun. You'll see that. But overall, the sun is always behind his head. You'll always see that. Now, the two fingers up like this is an ancient Kemetic peace sign. And by Chem, it means Egyptian. And Chem actually goes back to the word dark. Okay? So the separate sign, this is the British V for victory war sign because the fingers are separate. This is the Churchill, John Lennon war sign. This is the peaceful sign. So whenever you see pictures of Jesus doing this, or Baphomet, or Satan, or any of those creatures doing this, when they're doing this, they're telling you they're coming peacefully. Now, the white Jesus picture, his face, is actually Caesar Borgia, who is the bastard son of Pope Alexander VI. Before then, there was no picture of him, and it was decided his picture would be the face of. So what happened was Rodrigo Borgia, okay, Pope Alexander VI bought his way to the papacy in the 1500s, okay? And what he did was he had kids. Popes used to have kids. They just didn't get married, so all the kids were bastards. So Caesar Borgia was the bastard son of Alexander VI, and his son, they decided to make him the face of. And Caesar Borgia was a horrible person. He killed his brother. He slept with his sister. He was just a horrible person. But his face became the face of Jesus. The reason why is because about 80 years prior to Rodrigo Borgia's ascent to the papacy, the printing press came out. So they were able to mass manufacture these pictures. It's not like in Islam where you're not allowed to draw Muhammad. It's not that you couldn't draw Jesus. There was just no face for him before then. Now, the crown of thorns wrapped around the heart on the outside of the body. And the heart is always on the outside of the body, right? You always see Jesus like this with the two fingers. You'll see the sun behind his head. You'll see the heart outside the body always in pictures. The heart outside the body represents the toroidal field or the Taurus field, okay? And the crown of thorns represents the rays of the sun. Jesus is crucified with the crown of thorns. He's the sun, and the crown of thorns are the rays, okay? And they're talking about the Taurus field. This is the electromagnetic field of the heart. This is what it looks like. It kind of looks like an apple with your center being the core. It goes out and circumvents you 6 feet. Okay, that's why the elites tried to keep you 6 feet apart during the pandemic. Okay, because you wouldn't be able to interact with anybody electromagnetically. Now, when someone comes up behind you, you know that they're there always. They broke your Taurus field. It's not that you're a psychic or anything, or you have great intuition. This is a thing. Now, when two people are connected like this is what happens with the Taurus fields. Okay? Now, this on the left is Jesus. The guy on the right is an early picture of Caesar Borgia. You can see where he gets his features from. But as I mentioned to you, this is a Kemetic peace sign. This goes back to the word dark. Okay? So the people at the time were darker. Okay? So that's why he ends up being this white guy, is because of Caesar Borgia. Now, I've gone through a decent amount of stuff so far. Are you familiar with? You want to start decoding some verses?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So, have you heard of the phrase "pride comes before the fall"?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you explain it to your listeners, please?
So, I mean, the way that I see pride cometh before the fall is it's when somebody's too boastful, when they're too arrogant, they are going to fall. They are going to, it's pretty, they're gonna eat shit.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
All right. Now, let me ask you a question. What is a group of lions called?
A pride.
Group of lions is called a pride. Pride is the lion. The lion is Leo. Leo is in July and August. That comes right before the fall.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting.
Okay. Now, in the
Mhm.
book of Micah, which is my namesake, he predicts that the Savior will going to come from a specific town. Do you remember what town?
Nazareth.
No, that's where he's from. But where did they say he comes from?
Oh, I don't know. Where do they say it comes from?
Bethlehem.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Right? But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from old, from ancient times. However, Bethlehem is two words in Hebrew. It's Bet, which means house, and Lechem, which means bread. So the house of bread. This is Virgo with the wheat stalk. That's the house of bread. Remember, Virgo, the house? Okay? The virgin. So when the Savior comes from Bethlehem, the Savior comes from a virgin. Do you see how that works?
Mhm.
Interesting.
Okay. Now, Deuteronomy 32. I've given you key words so that we can break this down. Okay? I'm going to go over the signs. There's 10 of them, but I only highlighted 8 because I'm going to talk to you about the last 2. He gave them honey from the cliffs and olive oil from the rocky grounds. Olive oil, olives, remember, that's Libra. He gave his people butter from the herd and milk from the flock. He gave them lambs. Lambs are Aries. And goats, which is Capricorn. They had the best rams, that's Aries, from Bashan, and the finest wheat. Wheat is Virgo, the lady with the wheat stalk. They drank the best wine made from the juice of red grapes. That's Libra. But Jeshurun became fat and kicked like a bull. That's Taurus. Do you see how these signs are all in just one passage?
Mhm.
Right? Now he gave them honey from the cliffs. In Cancer, in the sign Cancer, there's a group of stars called the Beehive Cluster. Okay? They've been known for thousands of years. That's where the metaphorical honey comes from. That's in Cancer. Okay? Butter from the herd and milk from the flock, that's milk-based. That comes from the Milky Way galaxy, who's been referred to such as far back as the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which predates the Bible thousands of years. The Milky Way galaxy center is in Sagittarius. So your land from Cancer with the honey to Sagittarius, the milk, in the heavens, that's your land of milk and honey. It's not actually a place on Earth.
Interesting. Huh.
Now, the Mount of Olives. Jesus led his disciples to the Mount of Olives after his last Passover so he could teach them a few more things. Pray, then wait for Judas to betray him. While walking to the Mount of Olives, he gave the parable of the true vine. So Passover takes place in Aries. Look at the zodiac wheel. Aries is on the left. Well, right after that, he walks to the Mount of Olives. Well, olives are in Libra, right? So remember, opposing signs. Aries to Libra is an opposing sign. Now
Okay.
they're in Libra. They're waiting for Judas to betray him. The betrayer is Scorpio, which is the connecting sign. So you go opposing sign, connecting sign. While in Libra, he gives the parable of the true vine, or vineyard or wine press, whatever you want to call it. That's still grapes. That's still Libra. That's when you crush the wine. So it goes from Aries to Libra. They're waiting for the betrayal. While in Libra, he gives the true vine. Do you see how this decodes?
No. Explain it to me. I'm watching it
So
though.
Aries is Passover. That's when Passover.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Where right after that, they walk to the Mount of Olives. Remember, I told you olives were in Libra. That's when you crush the olives.
Yeah.
So you
Looking
go
at
from
that.
Aries to Libra. They're opposing signs.
Okay.
While they're in Libra, they are waiting for the betrayal. The
Okay.
betrayal happens in Scorpio, the betrayer,
Mm-hmm.
which is the next sign over from Libra. So while
Yes.
they're waiting for that, he gives the parable of the true vine, which I mentioned before. Vine, vineyard, everything that happens in Libra, remember?
Mm-hmm.
So you see how there's patterns that work here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. Okay.
These are just very encoded metaphors. Very encoded metaphors.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
Now watch this. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. The firmament is actually not a dome over a flat earth. That's not what the firmament is. God says
You just triggered half our audience. I'm just kidding.
it's not, though. It's not. I'm
I
sorry.
know.
The firmament is the dividing lines between the zodiac signs. Some people call them cusps. Some people call them handover dates. It's basically the line through here. What it does is it keeps one sign from spilling over into another. Without the firmaments, we wouldn't be able to follow the zodiac in the sky. Now, the two waters I mentioned are Aquarius and Pisces. The water under the firmament is Aquarius, and the one above it is Pisces. This is just a mirrored image. I have to change this image because Aquarius is technically under Pisces. But it basically separates the waters from the water, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's what the firmament does. Now, Revelation 4:7. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. This is Revelation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The first living creature was like a lion. That's Leo. The second was like an ox. That's Taurus. The third had a face like a man. That's Aquarius. The fourth was like a flying eagle. In astrology, the scorpion is the belly-crawling creature. It's the lowest form of life on Earth. It's a low form of life on Earth to crawl on your belly. You remember how the snake's punishment after the deception in the Garden of Eden was to crawl on its belly?
Mm-hmm.
Took away his legs, right? Well, that's what it is. It's punishment to crawl on your belly. However, its evolved form in astrology is the eagle, which is what? The highest flying form of life on Earth. Now, the eagle evolves one more time and becomes the phoenix. And what's the story of the phoenix? It's the same story of Christ. It's a flaming ball of life. Christ the Sun, S-U-N, just like the sun. It's a flaming ball of life that dies, remains dead, and then comes back to life. So the eagle becomes Scorpio. Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio. Those are the four fixed signs of the zodiac. The reason they're called fixed signs is because they're fixed in their season. See, Leo is right in the middle of summer. Taurus is spring. The man Aquarius, that's winter. And the flying eagle or the scorpion is the fall. So that's why they call it fixed signs. Now look what it does too. Lion, Leo, man, Aquarius, those are opposing signs. Ox, Taurus, eagle, Scorpio. Those are opposing signs. Do you see this little red X that I've made, how it goes through the wheel and it points it out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's what that passage means. That's what that passage tells you. It tells you the four fixed signs.
And so are those like maybe the seasons in between those the X's that you created? Does that kind of separate those into like 4 seasons?
Correct.
Okay.
That's why they're called fixed signs, because they're fixed in their season. You have things called cardinal signs, you have things called mutable signs, and you have things called fixed signs. The fixed signs are fixed because they're in the middle of their season.
Yeah, okay. I see that. That's interesting.
So that's just from that one passage, as opposed to people believing there's literally going to be a 4-headed thing in the sky. That's not what it is. Now let's keep with Revelation. Revelation 12. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its head. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. Sweeping the stars out of the sky and flinging them to earth is a metaphor. Now, people think that there's going to be a dragon in the sky and a woman in the sky, pregnant, a sign of the apocalypse. But watch this. A woman clothed with the sun is a sun clothed in Virgo. Woman being Virgo, and the sun is in it. It's clothed is just a metaphor for the sun being in Virgo. Now, if the sun is in Virgo, the moon will be at her feet. So we have 12 zodiac signs, okay? We have a 24-hour-a-day clock, so the sun spends 2 hours a day in each sign every day. If the sun is in Virgo, that's between 4 and 6 p.m. when the sun is still out. So if the sun is out, wouldn't the moon be at her feet, metaphorically? And when the moon is out, the sun would be at her feet? That's what it's trying to tell you. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous dragon. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. The constellation Draco is the dragon. If you've ever heard of the constellation Draco, its tail goes from Aries to Sagittarius, which is 4/12 of the sign, or 1/3 of the stars out of the sky. And you can see the constellation on the left here. Okay, so it's just telling you about different constellations, where the sun would be, and how long the constellation is. It tells you about the tail. So I went through 2 passages in Revelation. You guys have any comments so far?
Oh, this is just interesting. I was wondering almost. Well, go ahead, Tony. Do you have some questions?
No, I'm just trying to take it all in right now.
Okay. So what is your, I mean, so I was going to maybe ask this question at the end, and just like, what are your thoughts the Bible is then? Is it like just trying to tell us a history of what happened, or is it trying to tell us like, telling us how to understand the stars, or,
well, it's this.
Or both?
It's this. The scriptures are, there's 7 sciences in the Bible. The metaphysical, astrological, which I go over, anatomical, alchemical, spiritual, esoteric, and mythology. They're not literal stories. Okay. They're not historical. They're not reality, and they are not original. You'll find a lot of the things were borrowed from previous religions.
What? Just a curiosity. What do you mean by anatomical? I don't get that.
By what?
Anatomical.
They tell you things. Well, for example, I don't really go that deep into it, but I can tell you this right now: is that you have the 33 spines, 33 bones in your spine. That's why Jesus was 33. And you have the sacred fluid that goes up it, which is also the spine. If you think of it as stairs, it's Jacob's ladder, which goes into which reaches up into your brain, into your pineal gland. Okay, and that causes your resurrection. Is when your DMT starts to spill.
Okay.
So these are alchemical. These are astrological. This is anatomical too. They talk about the difference. I'll show you a little bit of anatomical in a little bit.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, man, this is super fascinating. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Matthew 10:16. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. The sheep is Aries, right? And the wolf is a constellation Lupus, which borders the Libra line. Libra to Aries are opposing signs. So this is basically just a metaphor telling you about the cross signs in the zodiac. Okay? That's what it's telling you. These are deeply encoded astrological metaphors that talk about that. Okay, that's basically what this does. That's what the Bible is. That's a big portion of what it is. So I'm giving examples of astrotheology in the Old Testament as well as the New Testament. I've been accused of cherry picking verses from the Bible to prove a point. So let's take a much longer passage, see if we can decode it as well. We come to the book of Job. Do you remember the book of Job?
It's been a minute.
It's the one where
Job was a righteous guy who had everything.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's a rough story.
Righteous guy who had everything. And Satan goes up to God and says the only reason he's righteous is because he has land, he has money, he has family, he has animals. So God says, do what you want to him. Now Satan says he will curse you if you take stuff away. So God basically takes him up on the bet. He says you could do whatever you want to him, you just can't take his life. So he ends up losing everything. He's like sitting on a rock. He calls up to heaven. And then this is the part where God actually answers him. So what I'm going to read you first, the first line is what God says. The second line is the decoding, okay?
Okay.
First, God says, his very first thing he says is, can you lead forth the Mazzaroth? The Mazzaroth literally translates to the zodiac. Mazzaroth over time becomes Mazalot, which survives in Judaism today as Mazel Tov. And you know how old Mazel Tov is. Mazel Tov means good fortune from the stars. So the Lord's challenge to Job, he right away says, can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Do you see how those are celestial metaphors?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Then he says, can you bring forth the constellation in their seasons or lead out the bear with its cubs? The constellations are the zodiac above. The bear and its cubs are Ursa Major, the Great Bear, and Ursa Minor, part of the Big Dipper. Then he says, who could tip over the water jars of the heavens? That's Aquarius, the man with the water jar that's tipping it out. Do you hunt the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger for the lions? That's Leo. Who provides food for the raven? That's the constellation Corvus, which means raven and borders on Virgo. Do you watch where the doe bears her fawn? Mariga, meaning deer, is located in Orion. Who let the wild donkey go free? That's Acellus borealis, which means donkey and is located in Cancer. Will the wild ox consent to serve you? That's Taurus. The wings of the ostrich flap joyfully. That's Lambda Achille or Al-Thaliman, which means two ostriches in Arabic. Do you give the horse its strength? It laughs at fear, afraid of nothing. It does not shy away from the sword. The quiver rattles against its side along with the flashing spear and lance. Sagittarius with the bow and the arrow. Does the eagle soar at your command and build its nest on high? Aquila is the Latin name for eagle and is a constellation a few degrees above the celestial equator. The eagle is also the evolved form of the Scorpio. So there's two different eagles in the zodiac. Okay? Can you pull in Leviathan with a fish hook? Leviathan was the fish god. That's Pisces. So do you see how he's literally just encoding ways to talk about what he created in the celestial heavens?
Yeah, that's fascinating. Okay.
Let's go to the book of Psalms. Psalms 104. He sends forth springs in their valleys. The wild donkeys quench their thirst. He causes the grass to grow for the cattle, and wine which makes man's heart glad, so that he may make his face glisten with oil. The high mountains are for the wild goats. He made the moon for the seasons. The sun knows the place of its setting. The young lions roar after their prey. The springs are Aquarius. The wild donkeys are Acellus borealis, which are in Cancer. The cattle is Taurus, the bull. The wine is Libra. The oil is Libra, as I've mentioned before. Olives and wine are made in Libra. Or olive oil and wine are made in Libra. The wild goats are Capricorn. The moon for its seasons and the sun knowing the place of its setting is openly talking about the sun and the moon. The lions roar after their prey are Leo. Okay? Psalm 147. He gives to the beast its food and to the young ravens which cry. He does not delight in the strength of the horse. He does not take pleasure in the legs of a man. He makes peace in your borders. He satisfies you with the finest of the wheat. He gives snow like wool. So the rays of the constellation Corvus, which I've mentioned already, the horse is Sagittarius, the man is Aquarius, the wheat is Virgo, the lady with the wheat stalk, the Virgin, and the wool comes from the sheep or Aries. Do you see how every one of these books that I'm taking out of the Bible are all basically encoded the same way?
Yeah.
So what's the purpose for the encoding? I mean, it's very poetic, but like, what are people trying to? What's the information that's crucial here? That's
the question, isn't it? That's the question, isn't it? I'll tell you. I'm looking at my computer right now, and it says 2/27, as in February 27th at 12:54 p.m. So just by that, me being in my house, I know it's going to be cold outside. Okay? The ancients didn't have phones, watches, calendars.
Yeah.
They didn't have meteorologists to tell them what was going on. Okay? They had the sun, and they had sundials, and they had these. So they had to figure out. It's the same reason if we went back to a civilization point in our life, if let's say like a nuclear war where we had to hunt and gather again and learn everything all over again, a relationship with God would be very low on that list. We would need to survive first. Okay? This book was made for survival. This tells you where the stars are, what to do when you see the stars. This was the first calendar. Okay? This is basically a farmer's almanac that reads like a grimoire. Okay? That's what the Bible is. Okay? It tells you when to plant. Okay? With Taurus the bull. Now, we have machines that do that now, right? But back in the day, they needed the bull. Okay? You needed to know that you need to harvest in Virgo and Libra. Otherwise, you weren't going to have food for the winter. Okay? You needed to know when winter was coming. You'd see the scorpion, you know, all right, it's a betrayal. It's going to start to get cold. That's basically what the point of this is this tells you the astrological clock, and it tells you what happens in each sign. Now, I'm going to explain at the end what had happened, how we became so literal in reading this instead of realizing that this is what it was. But prior to 325 AD, okay, which was when Constantine united everybody under literal Christianity, which was taking the Bible literally. But right before then, Christians were known as Helionostics. And in Greek, Helios means sun, and Gnosis means knowers. They were sun worshippers. They knew this. In fact, Julian the Apostate, who was Constantine's nephew, okay, tried to bring everyone back to sun worship. He has books that are still out there. Okay? They knew about the celestial everything. They did. He said, Julian the Apostate in one of his books said that the sun is the fiery chariot that all the planets dance around. Okay? And they only talk about the heliocentric model, 1,500 years after that, which is nuts. So this has been hidden. This has been hidden from us. But this is an ancient way of basically telling you what's going on. Now, answers to questions at the beginning, how Jesus was able to heal the blind. Mm-hmm. Well, the man comes up to Jesus. What does he do? He spits on his fingers and he touches his eyes and then he could see. Well, what happens with the Son of God is when the sun goes down, we're blind. We lose our sight. But when the sun comes up and touches our eyes in the morning, suddenly we're able to see. How we walked on water. You ever seen a sunset on a lake before? Or on a beach before? You can literally see the sun walking on water. And the interesting thing is if you start to walk alongside, walk in a direction, the sun will follow you. So how he turned water into wine, this is not a parlor trick. It's a process. Okay? So the reason God is considered a man and Mother Earth is considered a woman for all times is because of God's sacred fluid. It's the rain that comes down from heavens. In Hebrew, the word is shemen. We get the word semen from it. It's the sacred fluid. What happens is God's sacred fluid comes down onto earth, literally, and then from her belly, she gets pregnant, and then grass grows, and then food grows, and then, vegetation grows. That's why. So what happens is in Taurus, right, when you plant, Taurus is April showers bring May flowers. Taurus is April, May. Everyone knows that line. It rains. It starts to rain on what you just planted. You planted the grape seeds, and then it rains and it rains and it rains, and then come hither, Libra, you turn them into wine. It's a process. That's how you turn God's water into wine. All right? It's a metaphor. It's a process. Why he had 12 disciples. Each one of the disciples represents one of the zodiac signs. I told you that Judas represents Scorpio, the betrayer. Just to give you another example, you have Simon Peter. Okay? Now, some people are called Nathaniel. They call them Nate, Micah, Mike, Timothy, Tim, Tommy, Tom. There's nicknames for people, but Simon is given the name Peter. So why Peter? A lot of people say that, because he'll build his rock on it, but that doesn't really answer the question. You have to know astrology in order to get to the bottom of this. Which sign is he? So do you remember what Simon's job was?
He was a fisherman.
He was a fisherman, exactly. So which one are the fish? Fish is Pisces, right? The
Pisces.
two fish. You know what the ruling planet of Pisces is?
I don't.
It's Jupiter or Jew-Peter. It's just a play on words. Okay, so Simon Peter represents Pisces, whereas Judas represents Scorpio. I'm not going to go into the rest of them, but that's basically how it is. It tells you ruling planets. It basically tells you astrology. Okay, now why was he betrayed with a kiss by Judas? We went over that. Why he was dead for 3 days? We went over that. Why is his birthday on December 25th? I told you we were going to go on over that. Okay? So, doesn't stop there. It's not just random passages in the Bible that can be decoded this way. We're going to go through the entire book of Matthew to show how deep this runs. I have to just run to the bathroom real quick, guys.
Sure.
Okay? So
yeah, no worries. Well, Tony, this is some interesting stuff, buddy. What do you think?
Yeah.
You got any takeaways yet?
Well, what I'm interested in is how much of this is based upon English translation. So you get the sun connection, but I don't know whether or not that translates into the languages that
the Jew Peter.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think there is something about the idea that the calendar was important to us in a way that we just don't understand. You just need to do something seasonally and.
Yeah, and there's some other stuff. Yeah, that's fascinating because I celebrate. I go to church on Saturday, which would be Saturn's Day.
Yes,
we think that's the Sabbath. We think the Sabbath is on a Saturday.
Well, you're a Saturnist,
but,
so
Yeah, we already know that. I worship Saturn, Yahweh. So
Saturn cult.
I'm part of this. I'm exposing it, but I'm actually what do you call it? A limited hangout because I'm actually in the Saturn. Black cube behind me. Do you see this flag behind me?
Yeah.
This whole time I've been in on it.
Yeah, certainly. We can.
I miss anything?
We're just having fun. I was saying that I go to church on Saturdays. Actually, that's the day that we think is the Sabbath, and I was like, that's because I worship Saturn on Saturn's day.
Yeah,
And,
Saturn's
I was
Day,
like,
yeah.
this is the big.
It goes back to
behind
Saturnalia worship.
Yeah, for sure.
Jewish religion goes back to Saturnalia worship. And
Yeah.
you know what the funny thing is? If you go to Google and you look up when was Saturn discovered, it'll tell you 1610 by Galileo. But that's ridiculous because we know that you had Saturnalia worship back in the day. You know that you have, women had to wear earrings because they were told to listen to their god. They had to get their ears pierced. That's why they have rings for Saturn. You have to wear wedding rings.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
If you're a man, you have to wear wedding rings because you have to pledge your fidelity to your spouse in front of God. God was Saturn. Okay.
Yeah.
So we know all this stuff, and yet they tell you on the internet that Saturn was discovered in 1610. It's just a way. It's just a way to lie to you.
If the internet says it has to be true, Micah.
I know. Absolutely. All right, so let's go through the book of Matthew. We'll go through the whole book so I can show you it's not just random passages, okay?
Okay.
Now, on the left, I've put the zodiac wheel, and I've also highlighted a section in red so you know where to follow. So if you ever get confused, just look at what I've done on the left, okay?
Okay.
So Matthew 3:2, repent of your sins and turn to God, for the kingdom of heaven is near. I didn't mention this before, but the kingdom of heaven on earth, the kingdom of heaven is Leo. And the reason it's Leo is because the sun, God's sun, rules Leo. Okay? Whereas the moon rules Cancer, which is right next to it. Okay? Those are connecting signs. But Leo is ruled by the sun. So the sun is in its rightful home in Leo. Okay? Each gospel begins at one of the four major points of the zodiac and ends at one of them as well. The two solstices and the two equinox, when connected, form a cross. This is known as the cross of God's sun. The kingdom of heaven is Leo, whose ruling planet is the sun. This is the only sign that the sun rules over. This is the firmament between Cancer and Leo. Remember the firmaments, the dividing lines?
Yeah.
It's the beginning of the kingdom. There's a saying in the Bible that says the firmament shows God's handiwork. The firmaments are the dividing lines between the signs. Now, the next passage, Matthew 3:4, John's clothes were woven from coarse camel hair, and he wore a leather belt around his waist. For food, he ate locusts and wild honey. Just a little weird that he's wearing camel hair clothing and he's eating locusts, but let's see if we can figure that out. If we take the most famous drawing of a man, Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, and superimpose it onto the zodiac, we can make sense of this. Now, people are going to tell me that da Vinci's Vitruvian Man didn't come out until the 1500s or the 1400s, and this came out well before then. I use the Vitruvian Man just because it's a good representation of the man, but honestly, you can literally wrap the man, any picture of a man around the zodiac like I do here. Cancer being the head is why he eats wild honey. See, his mouth is in Cancer, his head is in Cancer, the beehive cluster's in Cancer, so it's a metaphor. He's eating the wild honey. Then Leviticus 11, what's clean and unclean to eat. All flying insects that walk on all fours are to be regarded as unclean by you. There are, however, some flying insects that walk on all fours that you may eat. Those that have jointed legs for hopping on the ground. Of these, you may eat any kind of locust. There it is right there. You can eat locusts. Katydid, cricket, or grasshopper. Okay? So now we're in Cancer, right? So we're going to go a little lower on the body. We're going to go to Gemini. This is where the clothes are made out of camel hair because this is his arms, his chest. It's where he'd wear clothes. Okay? Made out of camel hair, or Camelopardalis, which is a constellation in Gemini. So we went from Cancer to Gemini. Those are connecting signs. We're going to go a little lower to Taurus, which is his midsection, okay, which is where you'd wear the belt. Taurus represents the bull, and the female is a cow, and that's where you get the leathers from the cow. Regarding the belt, Orion's belt sits between Taurus and Gemini. Now, next will be the baptism. Now, how are we going to go from the beginning of Leo, which is where we were before, to a water sign to signify the baptism? You go across the zodiac. Cross signs, as I've mentioned before, as they are known, are the signs opposite location. For example, Aries and Leo are cross signs. This is very important. A sign's two most important signs are its neighboring sign and its cross sign. This is encoded in the book as well. Here is how it makes a leap from one firmament to the other. The man with the water pitcher in Aquarius is personified as John the Baptist with water. It's important to note, too, that John the Baptist and Jesus are always exactly 6 months apart. When you think about the fact that Jesus is born on December 25th and rises a degree a day, remember the sun rises, then that must mean that John the Baptist is born on June 24th and decreases a day. This is why in John 3:30, John says, he must increase, but I must decrease. Okay? It's also why St. John's Day is exactly 6 months to the day of the birthday of Jesus. You can look up any Catholic calendar. The next story is the temptation of Jesus. So we're going back to the Cancer Leo firmament where we were. This one is simple. He's tempted for 40 days. So just count 40 days. 40 days from July 24th takes you to September 2nd, which is right in the middle of Virgo, the lady with the wheat stalk, the bread and all that stuff, remember? Okay, so what happens? What's the very next passage? Matthew 4:3, the devil says, if you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become loaves of bread. Here we see mention of the bread, which tells you that the sun is now in Virgo. The next passage, Matthew 5:17 and 22, I did not come to abolish the law. And if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. This takes place in the firmament of Virgo and Libra. Okay? So you went from you went from Leo, okay, to Virgo in the 40 days. And now you're talking about law. So you're going to continue to go, and you're in Libra now. Okay? Matthew 7:15-16, beware of false prophets who come disguised as harmless sheep, and can you pick grapes from the thorn bushes? The sheep are the rams in Aries, and the grapes are in Libra. Once again, these are opposing signs. So moving along, Matthew 13, later in the same day, Jesus left the house and sat beside the lake. So he's beside the lake, so we know it's between the two water signs, right? Because they use the word beside. If they said he went into the lake, he'd be in one of the signs, representing water. The story now moves from Libra to the barrier between Aquarius and Pisces, as he's right beside the lake, or the two water signs. Its cross sign is the Leo-Virgo firmament. As it's across from Virgo, the wheat stalk, the grains. Is it ironic that Jesus' next parables are the wheat and the weeds, the mustard seed, and the yeast, all having to do with Virgo, things in Virgo. Moving right now along, next is a fishing net parable. So we go back from that firmament to Aquarius Pisces. Why? Because the fishing net parable needs the fish. So we go back to connect with the fish. Gemini is the sign of the two men, technically twins. However, there's a short mention of brothers in the next passage. He's just the carpenter's son, and we know Mary, his mother, and his brothers, James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas. So we're in Gemini, Gemini being the twins or brothers. He's mentioning the brothers. This ends at the firmament of Gemini Cancer. How do we know this? So we were in Gemini, and now it goes to the firmament. If you follow the firmament of Gemini Cancer to its cross sign, you go to Sagittarius Capricorn. That's December 21st. That's the day of death. Okay? What's the very next passage? It's the death of John the Baptist. As I mentioned before, the death comes at the end of Sagittarius. The firmament of Sagittarius Capricorn and the Gemini Cancer are opposing signs. So I took a pause from the gospel to just write this one in. Let's take a sentence which sounds like it could be in the Bible but isn't. If I say to you, the rulers were divided between war and love, it split the land in half. You could read that as a literal translation. Or the ruling planet of Aries is Mars, who's the god of war, and the ruling planet of Venus, who's the goddess of love. There is your war and love. If you connect it, it splits the land in half, literally. So that's how they wrote the metaphors for this Bible. Okay, it's all just basically following the 12 signs. Now next, Matthew 14, 17, and 32, but we only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. The bread and the fish are opposing signs in the zodiac. Okay, Pisces the fish and Virgo the bread. Those are opposing signs, and that's why he feeds the masses with 2 fish. The 2 fish are Pisces. Okay, and also they give you 5 loaves of bread. Well, the year starts in Aries. If you count 5 signs from Aries, you get to Virgo. That's why there's 5 loaves of bread. It's just telling you more about the stars. This is the cross of God's sun. We were just in Virgo, and now next is Libra, which is law and wine, remember? What stories do we get now? We get law and wine stories. The story of the temple tax, the unforgiving debtor, divorce and marriage, and the parable of the vineyard worker. Okay, so we were just in Libra. Now we're in Scorpio. This is the betrayer. This is where Judas betrays Jesus with a kiss. Next we go to Sagittarius, and what happens at the end of Sagittarius? It's the death. Here's where Jesus is crucified on the cross. Okay? That's the book of Matthew, guys. That's how it's supposed to be read.
Fascinating. Okay. So what is the overall narrative of Matthew? I'm getting what you're saying. I'm tracking with you. What did we learn from Matthew? What were they?
It's like a game of 5D chess. It's just a multi-layered story. It's a multi-layered story. Like you could read the story literally, but it's not going to make sense. There's going to be plenty of contradictions, like there always are. You have to use apologetics to explain away. Okay? Mm-hmm. If you read it literally, you're not going to ascend. There's different sciences that have been embedded into this. This is basically, if you took all of man's knowledge up to a certain point and encoded it so that not everyone could read it, it would be the Bible.
How did it get so convoluted? It feels like having understand that
used to read things like this. Let me do this. Hold on. This is what I love to end with, but I'll show you now. My point once again is not that those ancient people told literal stories just want to take symbolically, but that they told them symbolically, and we are now dumb enough to take them literally.
Okay, Micah, could you read that one more time? We had a little we had a little issue with your audio.
My point once again is not that those ancient people told literal stories, and we are now smart enough to take them symbolically, but that they told them symbolically, and we are now dumb enough to take them literally.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Jesus disappears at 12 and comes back at 30. This has been a subject of great debate, but the answer is quite simple, actually. What happens to a young Jewish boy at the age of 12? He becomes bar mitzvahed. He becomes a man. So Jesus becomes a man and leaves to study. He starts his ministry at 30. But why? The ancient Jewish religion had roots in Saturnalia worship before it. That's why their day of rest is the Saturday or the Saturn day. So why 30? Saturnalia worship said that if you were not allowed to come back to become a teacher until Saturn came back to the point it was when you were born. It just so happens that Saturn takes 30 years to come back.
Interesting.
Okay.
That's fascinating.
Now the sun tells the hour of the day. The moon tells the day of the month. The zodiac tells the month of the year. It's a perfect calendar. To me, that's proof of God. Okay? That is proof of God to me. That's a creation. Okay? It just so happens that we're in our little neck of the woods where our lonely planet is. We have a perfect celestial calendar.
Yeah.
To me, that's a fingerprint of creation.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I have questions. Micah, what is your personal like philosophy as far as like, I mean, so you do believe in a creator?
I believe my personal philosophy is it's twofold. The first being that, have you ever heard Einstein say that I believe in Spinoza's God?
No, I haven't heard that before.
Spinoza's God is basically Baruch Spinoza. To sum this up real quick, just to answer your question, Spinoza's God would basically say, I've given you, lakes and nature and all this stuff. Go celebrate me that way. Why are you dressing up, going into a cold building and screaming at the top of your lungs, praying towards me? Do you remember what it says in the Bible, what Jesus says in the Bible? Jesus says, don't look at the people who are the loudest, because they have their reward.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, I get that.
So there's that. Okay? And then there's a combination that I believe God is infinite. And nothing exists outside of infinity. So I think we're all part of God. We're all... Do either of you two have kids?
Yeah.
I don't.
So is your child half of you, literally, genetically?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. So they are you, but you experience them as a separation of yourself. Even though they are literally you, you experience them separately. You teach them things. You grow. You learn with them. That's what God did when he created humanity. Okay? Because being an all-knowing and all-powerful and all everything creator, what you have is you have nobody to experience what you are and what you have or what you can do. So you create things to experience for you. So we're all birthed through God. We're all a part of God. because nothing exists outside of infinity and God is infinite. So it's a combination of those two theories.
Interesting, man. Yeah, that's fascinating. Okay, I like that. So the way you might worship is to go on the lake and just bask in the sunshine and put your feet in the grass.
Yep.
Yep. I mean, honestly, dude, I love camping, dude, and I like deep wilderness camping where you got to, like, dig a hole to poop sort of thing out in the middle of nowhere and you don't see another person. I
But
can definitely feel God's presence when I'm out. And
but do you see
what were you saying?
how much of an issue it is to believe in literal religion? Because Christians will have you believe, and Christianity will have you believe, that you are a filthy sinner beyond all redemption and that Jesus had to save your soul. And it's only when you realize that you are beyond saving. That's so dangerous to tell people things like that, for people to think that they are hopeless sinners, that they're filthy hearted, when you could be reading the Bible how it was supposed to be read. That's the problem.
I think there's something really powerful.
It's population control. It's a way to keep people in line, and you're not going to ascend esoterically and mentally if you read the Bible literally.
What were you saying, Tony?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think there's something really powerful about orientating yourself to proper time, to seasonalities. And we're so disconnected from that in modern life because I got air conditioner, I got heat, I don't spend that much time outside. But when you start to really take in the seasons, there's another part of your brain that clicks on that is just turned off for so many people. And I think I don't want to say it's like the way to ascend spiritually, but I think it's like a crucial ingredient.
Okay.
I don't know whether you have any practices that kind of mock time for you.
Not particularly.
No.
You got a garden going, Micah? Do you follow any of this stuff? That'd be kind of cool. I mean, I need to be starting my garden. I should be paying more attention to the Bible the way you're doing it because I honestly don't know when to start planting things. I'm a terrible gardener.
There's things you do, like with the wine, for example. The Italians know is that you never move the wine during a full moon when you make the wine. There's a science behind all this. Yeah. Let me show you how this is starting to be used against us, though. Okay, how the elites use it against us. Moses goes up to the 10 Commandments, and when he comes down, he sees them worshiping a golden calf. So what's more likely? The Jews got run out of Egypt. They couldn't even let the bread rise, which is why we have matzah to this day. They rushed to the desert with just the clothes on their back, but happened to carry enough gold between all of them, found welding equipment in the desert, and built a giant statue. Or the sun is the gold part, and the calf is the bull and Taurus. They were worshiping the sun and Taurus. Whereas they're the Jews, the people of Aries, the ram. That's why the Jews blow the ram's horn during the high holidays. They're openly telling you this. You just don't know why they're doing it. So he breaks the commandment.
Do they know why they're doing it? I wonder if...
No.
Okay.
Nobody knows. Nobody studies this stuff. Nobody knows. Okay? Now watch this. Hold on. No, we're going to move into something else. Look, remember how I told you the Bible's not original? This is chapter 125 of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The Declaration of Innocence before the gods of the tribunal. I only gave 3 examples because it fit on this slide, but you can literally go to it and read it. O swallower of shades who came forth from Kernet, I have not slain people, because thou shalt not kill. In Hebrew, the word is murder, but in the King James Bible, they changed it to kill, which is a contention between Jews and Christians and Catholics, because murder involves humans, whereas killing something could be an animal or an ant or anything. O doubly evil one who came forth from the Bereshite Nome, I have not had intercourse with a married woman, because thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife. O he who prospers the common people, who came forth from Asiut, I have not cursed a god. That becomes thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain. You can clearly see how this is taken from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which predates it by thousands of years. Okay, the flood story, Noah's Ark flood story, that goes back to the Egyptians. That goes back even further to the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is Sumerian. Okay, that's where the flood story comes from. Now this is how it starts to be used. The ancient Egyptians used to worship the sun and Taurus, hieroglyphs of the bull with the sun between its horns on the left. They were openly telling you that. You just didn't know what you were seeing. The Egyptian people fade after the age of Taurus, and the Jews come up in the age of Aries. That's why they blow the ram's horn to the sky, because Aries is the ram. Okay? Then they start to fade after Aries. And then the Christians are the people of Pisces. That's why they have the Jesus fish shown below, which is also known as the Vesica Pisces. This is why also Jesus is able to feed the masses with the 2 fish. Now, John 21. So Simon Peter climbed back into the boat and dragged the net ashore. It was full of large fish, 153. But even with so many, the net was not torn. You see the Vesica Pisces, the red Jesus fish in the middle?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay? Its mathematical equation is 247 over 153. There's the 153 fish. See, the ancients knew all this science. They embedded it and encoded it so that the knowledge wouldn't get into the wrong hands. And instead, what happened was people stopped reading this literally. Okay? Now, the Christians, we're in the age of Aquarius right now. I just told you that the Egyptians faded after Taurus. The Jews started to fade after Aries. We're in the age of Aquarius right now for about 10 years. Okay? So what's going to happen is the Christians eventually are going to start to fade. That's why you see all this animus in the news and everything against Christians. Okay? Because the elites that run everything know that the Catholic Church, its time is up. We're in the age of Aquarius. Okay? And look what happens right on track. Boom. One World Religion headquarters set to open next year. There has to be a new holy book and there has to be a new religion with every zodiac sign.
I wonder, does this give us hints on what this next thing is going to be?
I can tell you what it's going to be based on what I know right now.
I'm fascinated.
In 500 years, they're going to be able to tell you that Jesus was a solar deity. Okay, but they're going to have a new religion. Okay, the new religion it's the man sign, Aquarius. It's the sign of the man. So it's humanity. So it's basically going to be merging with machines. That's going to be the new religion.
Well, we see a lot of that coming.
Yep.
Yeah.
Merging with religion. And then you have merging with machines. You have Elon Musk with the Neuralink. You have
all kinds of transhumanism.
Metaverse. You have the metaverse. It's all about, that's what it is. It's people becoming their own gods. That's what the new religion is going to be. Now watch this. Genesis 32:30. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I've seen God face to face and my life is preserved. Well, Peniel, this is the eye of Horus on the left. Okay, everyone's seen that. On the right is a sagittal cut. If you cut a brain like this and you open it up like this, you'll see this. Okay, in the middle, that's the pineal gland. And right above it, the eyebrow ridge. Okay, that's the corpus callosum. Okay, now in many Buddhist traditions, 49 days is the total mourning period, with prayers conducted every 7 days across 7 weeks. The Buddhists believe that rebirth takes place 49 days after death. Okay? Also, the counting of the Omer in Judaism is 49 days. Okay? And it just so happens that the pineal gland becomes visible on the 49th day of gestation. And the pineal gland is known as the seat of God. It does 2 things. The pineal gland does 2 things. It releases a chemical called dimethyltryptamine, which is known as DMT. You ever read Rick Strasberg's The DMT Molecule? What it does is DMT, when you're sleeping, it causes you to dream. Okay, that's what causes you to dream when you're in REM sleep. Okay, when you're in heavy REM sleep, it causes you to dream. And then what happens is, excuse me, it releases one other time in your life, and that's as your body's shutting down and you're about to die. Your body gets flooded with it, so it prepares you for your next, where you're going next. That's what it does. Okay. And the other thing it does is it releases melatonin. Now, it's sunny out right now, but when the sun goes down, your body naturally gets tired. You get sleepy. That's because melatonin is being released by your body. Okay, it does that. Now, I wanted to go into another concept this is in Christianity. Okay? Not in Judaism. It's the hell, the inflaming inferno. Okay, the idea that your soul is going to burn in hell if you don't believe. That's another fear tactic used by the religious. Okay, how do we detect pain? The nervous system, the brain, the spinal cord, the nerve endings, the neurons. So let me ask you a question. When you die and you shed your physical body, okay, people could say, it's your brain that processes pain, or the pain comes from the brain, not just the nervous system. That's fine, but you also lose your brain when you die. You become a soul. Okay, when you give up your ghost and you travel elsewhere. So let me ask you a question. How are you going to sense burning if you don't have a body that senses burning? Also, burning is a thing on our dimension. It's not a thing on a higher dimension. The truth of the matter is this was inverted and perverted because hell is actually winter. The idea of a fiery pit where you burn for all eternity is ridiculous when you think about it logically. Hell is actually winter on Earth. Why? It's cold. The vegetation and beautiful flowers and plants are dead. The trees shed their leaves and bear no fruit. It's freezing cold out. People tend to get sick more often. Dangerous animals, if they're not hibernating, are starving and scrounging for food. It's dangerous for humans. In the Bible, don't they talk about hell being a place where there's gnashing of the teeth?
Mm-hmm.
Do you chatter your teeth in the winter or the summer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the
That's
winter.
fascinating. Yep.
What is the winter? The Italian word for winter is inverno. Flip a letter, inferno, and pervert its meaning, you get the concept of hell. This picture is Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy, Satan in the bottom level of hell. As you can see, he is frozen up to his waist in a frozen tundra because his wings are flapping so hard that it's freezing everything over. See, Dante knew hell was winter. That's hell. I'm not going to go into that. Now, Satan and Lucifer. Satan does not exist. He's not a red devil with a tail and a pitchfork. In fact, the earliest paintings of him in the 900s, he was actually blue. That's where you get the Duke Blue Devils from in America, the basketball team. The Hebrew word for Satan is Hashatan, which literally translates to adversary. In proper context, two competing sports teams are Satans to one another. Now, what about Lucifer? Lucifer and Satan aren't the same thing, but Lucifer is known as the light bringer. Genesis 1:3, and God said, "Let there be light." How can there be light without the light bearer? Lucifer is immediately mentioned in the Bible, if not by name, but by action and purpose. Lucifer is also known as the morning star. The morning star is also known as the planet Venus. The reasoning is that if you go out and look at the sky just before sunrise in the east, you will see a bright light directly over it. Try it. Try it in the morning. As the sun's rising, look directly above it. You'll see a pinpoint bright light. That's Venus. It announces the arrival of God's only begotten Son, the light of the world, every morning. Lucifer also has a pentagram. That's his symbol. Continuing with Lucifer as Venus, if you follow Earth and Venus's orbit around the sun in a year's time, they almost connect at 5 points. If you connect those points, you get the pentagram. This is what it would look like. That's the pentagram. Okay? That's Earth and Venus, and the ancients knew this. Okay? Now, this is the rudimentary symbol for the phallus. It's the original penis, so to speak. It's known as the spear. This is the rudimentary sign of the womb. It's the chalice. It's the feminine. This is the Star of David. It's the joining of the two, a hermaphrodite, so to speak. So there's more sex magic in the Bible than you think. This is a representation of King Solomon's temple. Okay, do you see anything interesting about it?
Okay. The Holy of Holies. Let's see here. The Store of Chambers. I don't know. It kind of looks like a bug.
Important to note that Solomon is not a name of a person. It's a combination of 3 words for the sun. Sol, or sun in Latin. Om, or sun in Buddhism. On was the city of light in Heliopolis, Greece. Solomon. This was created using sex magic. Yakin and Boaz represent the testicles from this overhead view. The porch is the base of the penis. The holy place is the shaft. And the Holy of Holies is the head. The ark or the hole of the penis is where the DNA information Torah is stored. The store chambers represent the female womb, and the 2 entrances to them represent the fallopian tubes. Do you see now how it's an overhead representation of a penis entering a vagina?
I see that now. Yes, I didn't see it before. That's fascinating. I'm still thinking about when I let my chickens out this morning. God was coming on me when I was raining this morning. Sorry.
That's what it is. Now, in view of Solomon, who is not real, okay, Solomon is 3 words for the sun. All these books in the Bible are different metaphors and deeply encoded ways of talking about the sun. Samson and Delilah. The word Samson in Hebrew is Shimshon, which means little son. Okay? Delilah, the root of Delilah is Lila. In Hebrew, you say Lila Tov, that means good night. Lila is the root of Delilah, that means night. What happens to Samson? He cuts his hair. He goes blind. He can't see. Samson and Delilah is a metaphorical story about the night overtaking the sun, which is the same thing that you go back to the story of Set and Horus. Why we have a sunset to this day is because Set chases Horus away into the underworld.
Why the hair?
Huh?
Why the hair? Like, I get like you go blind, but I don't understand why you.
So
cut
the
your
hair,
out.
the long hair, it actually, the ancient, not the ancient, the Indians knew this. That's why the Indians grew their hair out. It's an extrasensory perception. It's just a metaphor for it. When you grow your hair out long, you tend to have a little more psychic abilities. And for people who say, I don't know about that, the Indians used to know this too, because when they started shaving their head or cutting their hair when they would go to war, not when they would go to war, when they would get like drafted, they lost their powers. They used to know when people were sneaking up on them. It was like an antenna. Okay, so that's why. Because that was an ancient thing. And you can look into that. Extrasensory perceptions with long hair. You could literally just type that into DuckDuckGo and find it.
Fascinating.
All so right. What about Jonah?
I'm starting to get some psychic abilities, man. I've been growing my hair pretty long.
Yeah. So it was Jonah in the body of the whale. In Hebrew, the words are Dag Gadol, which translates to great giant fish. He's in it for 3 days. It's the 3 days you see recurring in the Bible over and over again. The sun walking sideways like the crab for 3 days. Daniel and the lion's den. It's a story revolving around 2 signs astrologically. Daniel the man, Aquarius, and the lions, which are Leo the lion. In the zodiac, they're opposing signs. Abraham and Sarah. Abraham's name was Abram before he was made Abraham. He was made Abraham after the angel stopped him from sacrificing Isaac. Okay, his name was Abram, which is a combination of 2 words. Abba, which is father in Hebrew, and Ram, which means ram. So Father Ram, father of the people of Aries, the Jews. Okay, Abram goes back to Brahma. Sarah goes back to Saraswati. It's influence from the Hindus. Okay, so it's not original. The Bible's not original. Lot and Lot's wife in Sodom and Gomorrah. In the ancient times, people were paid with salt. It's where the word salary comes from. Salt. Why? Because it preserved the meat, and when you killed a cow and didn't eat it in one day, it would go bad. Salt kept it from viable for longer. There was no refrigeration back then. Salt was the highest currency aside from gold and silver. So when she turned into a pile of salt, you have to think about the story as telling you that she left the corruption and turned back into a pile of money when she turned around. Now this is interesting. There's a town in Israel called Megiddo, which a 3rd century church was founded on another church. Basically, they were praying in the church and some guy's foot fell through the floor. And when they pulled him out and they looked under it, they found like a completely old church under there. So they dug the whole thing up. And it's one of the oldest churches known to man. It's from the 200s. In the center of the floor, look at that, is the mosaic for the 2 fish. See, at the time before Constantine in 325 AD united everyone under literal Christianity, they knew that Jesus was Pisces. Okay, Megiddo is also the root of the word Armageddon, which is where the war on earth and the rapture is supposed to begin. So America was not founded as a Christian nation. And the day will come when the mystical generation of Jesus by the Supreme Being as his father in the womb of a virgin will be classed with the fable of the generation of Minerva in the brain of Jupiter. That's Thomas Jefferson in a letter to John Adams. What influence, in fact, have Christian ecclesiastical establishments had on civil society? In many instances, they have been upholding the thrones of political tyranny. In no instance have they been sent as the guardians of the liberties of the people. That's James Madison. And my favorite, the Christian religion is a parody on the worship of the sun, in which they put a man called Christ in the place of the sun and pay him the adoration paid to the sun, Thomas Paine. The founding fathers were in their late teens and early 20s when they wrote our country's laws. This was before central banking took over and ruined everything. This country was not founded as a Christian country, and these 20-year-olds knew it. Okay? So these are just 3 of the founding fathers right here that we're talking about. They knew this.
I always find that astounding, too, when you find out how young those guys were.
That just shows you how bad American education is. And
you were a fully formed adult at 20 years old. I can't even have a conversation with a 20-year-old.
No, I find I like that line in Inferno from Dan Brown, where the bad guy's like, "I find people more tolerable after 35."
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I don't really endorse the concept of democracy, but if we were going to have a vote, like voting for things like I don't think you should vote. I mean, I go back to the whole like property ownership thing too. And then maybe after you're 40 years old, maybe you should be allowed to vote. I don't know, man. It's like especially these youngsters nowadays, man. I'm not even over 40. I don't think I should vote.
Yeah, speaking of the word youngster, do you know where that comes from?
No, tell me about it.
Young star.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay, so it's all astrology. Now, let's go into this. You know this symbol?
Yeah, we're banned.
We're kicked off YouTube. Yeah, no, that's the swastika, and the other way around. It was a peaceful symbol, right, in the Hindu religion.
Correct. They inverted and perverted it. The swastika, if you read Wikipedia, for example, talks about its origins of ancient times, from ancient religions and its peaceful meaning. Again, tweak it a little and pervert the meaning, and you get the modern day peace. We see that will never be reclaimed back as a peaceful symbol. But it goes further than that. The swastika isn't Buddhist or Hindu, Babylonian, Assyrian, or Sumerian. It's actually astrology. This is the oldest swastika that we've ever found. It's 17,000 years old, and it's from the Ukraine. Okay?
Fascinating. Okay.
What is the swastika? It's astrology. Look at this. It's the Big Dipper rotating around the North Star.
Okay.
So they would see this pattern, and then they made a peaceful symbol out of it.
That is really fascinating. So I'm looking at that now. Is this something that is visible in the southern horizon too?
Correct. Okay. So let me explain this real quick. Astrotheology, as we know it, okay, the way I'm teaching it and the way it's being explained, the zodiac signs and everything, okay, the Egyptians, the Jews, and the Christians that all wrote holy books were all in the northern hemisphere. That's why the science works with the northern hemisphere. But if you think about it, in Australia, June 21st, which should be the longest night of the longest day of the year, is actually dead in their winter. So what that means is that everything is backwards in the southern hemisphere.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay.
How common was this knowledge? I didn't know that any of the founder fathers would actually have any understanding of this. I thought it'd be a bit more esoteric.
This was all very common. They've been systematically, and since the Rockefellers took over the education system in the 1910s, education has become very dumbed down. And you could just look at how intelligent the founding fathers were.
Yeah, I mean, as much as like the internet has become something that like could be a tool for knowledge and things like that, I think that it is ultimately, I think it's been very detrimental because like you can look at like our parents and our parents' parents. People used to read books. People don't fucking read books anymore. Right. People listen to, they'll watch YouTube or TikTok or something, but that's not the same thing. I mean, you can get knowledge from it, but it's really not the same thing. And I think it is, and honestly, they've been occulting a lot of books. They've been hiding them and burning them and just trying to rabbit hole them. Yep. And yeah, man.
So look at this. This is when was Saturn discovered. This is what Google says. What about the Saturnalia festival on the basis of the Abrahamic Hebrew religion? Or I can even say the Abrahamic religions, all three of them. Just how Julian the Apostate 1,700 years ago talked about the sun being the fiery chariot the planets dance around. Heliocentrism was known earlier. So let's get into some of this stuff, how astrology is being used against us, okay? How the elites are using this against us. When do you kill John F. Kennedy? November 22nd, the handover date from Scorpio to Sagittarius. Scorpio being the betrayer, he was betrayed and dies in Sagittarius because the sun dies on December 21st. Okay? Why is January 1st New Year's Day? Neil deGrasse Tyson has gone on record saying that nothing special happens on January 1st or December 31st. He's wrong, and I've tried to call him out on it. Something interesting happened. It's our new year in the world because midnight on December 31st, if you look up as high as you can in the sky, you'll see the North. It's actually not the North Star. I meant to write Sirius. I have to change that. But it's not the North Star. It's Sirius, our dog star. At its height. That's its height. at December 31st at midnight. It doesn't get any higher than that. Follow a line straight down to Earth, and then follow a line straight down to the sun. It's perfect alignment. Otherwise, we should have a new year in Aries, March 21st, where Passover and Easter happen, or September 21st, when the Jews have their New Year's, or the solstices. The Ethiopians know this. The Ethiopians have the New Year on September 11th, right around the solstice. I mean, the equinox. Why do they always crash the stock market in Libra? Panic of 1907, October 1907. Wall Street crash of 1929, October 24th, 1929. Handover date to Scorpio. Black Monday, October 19th, 1987. Friday the 14th, mini crash, October 13th, 1989. Stock market downturn of 2002, October 9th, 2002. Libra is the judge, remember? The judgment, the justice. Our way of living is being judged in Libra. Now, counterproductively, its opposing sign, Aries, is the largest daily point gains. Why did the majority rebound in Aries? It's because it's the beginning of the year. The sun is on its way up instead of looking down in Libra. So when the elites crash the market, it's always in Libra. You see that?
So do you think do you think this upcoming October we're going to be in for something big? Do you think this is when they're going to be crashing the major economy?
I know that they crash it in Libra. I don't know what year. I haven't seen a pattern.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
That's when they crash it. Yeah, I wouldn't buy anything in Libra. I would buy an Aries.
Okay.
The bull and the bear market.
Mm-hmm.
Incidentally, notice that we have a golden bull, a golden calf in Wall Street. The bull is when the market is aggressive because it's going up. The bull ducks down and sticks its horns up to attack. The bear market. The market's on its way down. When a bear attacks, it has its paw high and swipes down. Astrological meaning. The bull is Taurus. The sun is rising a degree a day, so it's still going up. Hence the bull's horns going up. The bear are Ursa major. And the sun is starting to make its way down as it spans from Cancer to Leo to Virgo.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, the Roman Catholic Catechism, 2116. All forms of divination are to be rejected. Recourse to Satan or demons, conjuring up the dead, or other practices falsely supposed to unveil the future. Consulting horoscopes, astrology, palm reading, interpretation of omens and lots, the phenomena of clairvoyance, and recourse to mediums, all conceal a desire for power over time, history, and moralized analysis other human beings, as well as a wish to conciliate hidden power. They contradict the honor, respect, and loving fear that we owe to God alone. Abu Dawood. It is suggested that the Prophet Muhammad stated, "Whoever seeks knowledge from the stars is seeking one of the branches of witchcraft, that of which is inherently forbidden in Islam." Now, I don't think I can go into this. I don't. Wait, do I? Yeah, I do. Okay, so we'll get to that. Let's answer this. Why is astrology specifically banned from Catholicism and Islam if there's so clearly astrology in them?
Would this be because there was like some co-opting of this and they don't want us to know the knowledge? Was this occulted
that's exactly
for a specific reason?
They gaslight you. They give you a book that's entirely encoded in astrology, and then they tell you that astrology is evil. Now, let me show you how else they encode it, okay? You familiar with the Phoenix Suns, the NBA team?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Phoenix, sun. The phoenix is the story of Christ the Son, a flaming form of life that dies and rises from its ashes. Jesus was the Son who died for 3 days and came back to life. So both Phoenix and the sun are different ways of speaking of Christ. But what about the Phoenix women's sign? The Phoenix Mercury. Mercury is the ruling planet of Virgo, the only woman's sign. So how else are things encoded into everyday life? Do you guys remember a movie called Face Off?
Yeah, I haven't seen that in years. I want to rewatch that.
1990s movie Face Off starring Nicolas Cage and John Travolta. Well, what are the names of the characters? Nicolas Cage's character is Castor Troy. His brother is Pollux Troy in the movie. That's just Gemini. Remember the names? Castor and Pollux Troy? That's the names of Gemini. And his brother, and that's just Gemini. What about Travolta? His name is Sean Archer. Well, the archer is the man with the bow and the arrow. That's what an archer is. That's Sagittarius. Gemini and Sagittarius are opposing signs. Algol, also known as the Demon Star, has a long history of evil attached to it. In Batman Begins, the evil character's name is literally Ra's al Ghul, who gets his name from Al Ghul. Okay, do you remember this song, the Cranberry Zombie?
No, I
Yeah,
think I'm a little too young for this one.
I remember it.
1990 song video for the Cranberry Zombie. Here's Dolores O'Riordan is painted gold like the sun, and her head dressing represents the rays of the sun, much like Jesus in the crown of thorns. But is that it? Here we see the golden sun on the cross, and look, there's Sagittarius waiting to kill her. This is embedded.
So I'm curious. Do you think that the elitists, the people that are in charge, do they have like what you're talking about now? Do they know all these things? So was there like a
Somebody
underground
does.
school?
I'm just some dude in Long Island that figured this
Yeah.
out.
Do you think that
Telling
some
me
of
that
this
nobody
stuff
else
is the
knows
stuff
this?
that's passed down through, like, let's say, like the Knights Templar, some things like that, the Illuminati, maybe
Absolutely.
Freemasonry?
Well, I'll tell you, Freemasonry, not Freemasonry, but yes.
Okay.
What about this? Katy Perry's Dark Horse video. Here we see the Eye of Horus, Illuminati symbol. What about this? Why the sheep? Why the goats?
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, that was too on the nose. I laughed so hard with that.
Yeah, sheep is Aries and Capricorn is the goat.
Yeah. Interesting.
Omicron variant. So Corey Good, who is a ufologist, he's kind of like a big guy in the UFO community, shared one of my tweets. Variant Omicron. Omicron Draconis, that's what it's called. Draconis is Draco the dragon. They talk about it in Revelation. Its tail starts in Sagittarius. Omicron variety was first announced in Sagittarius. What happens at the end of Sagittarius? December 21st, the day of death. You have to ask why they always crash the stock markets in Libra. Why was the only dog to die during 9/11 named Sirius? They made a big deal out of that in 9/11. I'm from New York, so I remember it very well because we lost people. During 9/11, they said that one of the dogs died, and his name was Sirius. They only said one died. Okay? Modern day things revolving around astrology. Mermaids, a combination of the man sign Aquarius or the woman sign Virgo and the fish sign Pisces. Aquarius and Pisces are connecting signs. Virgo and Pisces are opposing signs. Bullfighting, bull riding, Aquarius the man and Taurus the bull. Jousting, 2 times Sagittarius. Lion taming, Aquarius the man and Leo the lion. Those are opposing signs. Fishing, Aquarius the man and Pisces the fish, connecting signs. Virgo the woman and Pisces the fish, opposing signs. Homosexuality in the Bible. Everyone knows about Leviticus 18:22. However, what is really said there? The Greek word arsenokotai shows up in 2 different versions of the Bible in the Greek, but was not translated to mean homosexual until 1946. In the 1800s, the German Bible said, "Man shall not lie with young boys as he does with a woman, for it is an abomination." Leviticus 18:22, same with Leviticus 20:13. 1 Corinthians, the word arsenokotai, and it's important to mention that the Bible was written in Hebrew, but everyone knew at the time that if you were an intellect, you wrote and read in Greek. So 1 Corinthians becomes boy molesters will not inherit the kingdom of God. If you were to grab Martin Luther's original German translation from 1534, they used the word Nabenschande. Naben is boy, Schande is molester. The first time homosexual appears in the German translation is 1983. So think about all the pain and anguish and people feeling horrible and worrying about hell, a burning flame of hell. Remember how it's winter, but it's actually people are worried about burning for all hell for being gay. All that stuff is nonsense.
That is super fascinating. That is super neat. Mike, I have more questions as far as just like your own personal philosophy. Do you because I'm just curious, man, because you have all this interesting knowledge. And so I'm curious about you as a person. Do you think that there is an afterlife? Do you think, like, what do you think that this plane that we're in, like when our big pineal gland explodes DMT, is that taking us to another realm?
It prepares you for it, sure.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
What I think happens, what I think happens, and there's a really, really good book out for anybody that's interested. It was written by a lawyer named Victor Zammit, Zammit, and you can Amazon it. Okay, he's an Australian lawyer who has $1 million challenge for anyone that could disprove the afterlife. Not only does he have that, but he wrote a book called The Lawyer's Case for the Afterlife, where he puts together a lawyer's case for it, facts, no circumstantial evidence, just facts, stories, proof of the afterlife. Absolutely. What I think happens is we develop our cognition on this plane, and with our kindness and our love and for the good and the bad. And then what happens is, I don't think we all go to the same place. I think we go where our mental capacity takes us. So if you've evolved to a point where you can understand some of this stuff, you'll be taken to a different place to continue your knowledge. It's basically a rebirth. Everybody, all the ancients, everybody always said that death is just the problem we have in modern day society is that they don't teach you proof of the afterlife or examples of the afterlife. So what they do is they flood you with killing on TV, movies that kill. They flood you with this so that you're scared of your own mortality. And being scared of your own mortality is what draws people to religion, because there's answers there. They tell you what you do this and you're going to go to heaven. That's not how it works. You're not going to raise your vibration. You're not going to do that. You're responsible for your own salvation. Okay. These are the books that I have done. Okay. We've done Matthew. We've done some of Revelation. All these books are the books that I have done, and I have decoded with astrotheology, like I've showed you today.
I'm curious. I see the book. Sorry, I see the book of Enoch, and I'm fascinated by Nephilim. What are they? Can you explain what the Nephilim mean?
Are they tied to a? I can explain the book of Enoch with astrotheology next time.
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah, we'd love to have you on.
Okay, but these are the books. I'm going to leave this up for a hot sec. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Enuma Elish, the Epic of Gilgamesh, Code of Hammurabi, Quran, Egyptian Book of the Dead. These are not even biblically related, and they're still backed up by astrotheology. Okay? Now, remember how I mentioned Islam before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
72 virgins. That's what they all do it for, right? There's a star. This is the star called 70 Virginis, which borders Virgo. That's the 70. There's one virgin in Virgo, so that's 71. Plus the virgin you marry on earth and have a family with, 72. Those are your 72 virgins that you have in heaven.
Fascinating.
It's all astrology. It's all astrology.
I don't know much about the Quran at all. So, I mean, I'd love to talk, man, the Epic of Gilgamesh with you. I'd love to talk about the Quran, man. All this stuff is super interesting.
Yeah. So topics in my book series, because I do have a book series out that goes deeper into all this kind of stuff. I talk about gematria, etymology, numerology, astronomy, astrology, astrotheology, out-of-body experiences, the Akashic records, symbology, remote viewing, religious secrets, capstones of the pyramids, mystery school channelers, near-death experiences, DMT monitoring, lucid dreaming, acoustic levitation, physics and quantum physics, psychotherapy, psychology, spiritual guides, and shared dreaming and crystal technology, conspiracies that not many people may know about, corruption and secret societies. This is what my first book looks like. Okay, it's Beneath the Veil, Into the Rabbit Hole. I have a book series called Into the Rabbit Hole.
That's an awesome cover, by the way. That cover's sick.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And basically, like I said, I'm on Twitter, Real Mr. Dank, spell out Mr. Facebook and Instagram, Micah Dank. Your fans can reach out to me. I sell signed copies of the series. And if you think what I did with astrology is interesting, you should see what I do with all those other topics in the book series. Right now, it's 6 books that are out. My 7th book is coming out, I think, in like 2 months.
Cool, man. Yeah, we'll have you back on in a couple months, and we want to hear about your new book.
Right. Well, no, we can do it earlier than that to do other stuff. It's fine. Sure. But basically, my point, once again, is not that those ancient people told literal stories and we are now smart enough to take them symbolically, but that they told them symbolically and we are now dumb enough to take them literally. So someone sent me this. So essentially, the Bible is just a big farmer's almanac survival guide, verbal astrological map that reads like a compilation of Grimm's fairy tales, basically giving the rundown of the growing season from start to finish over and over again, with the final reward being open chakras and enlightenment. And that's basically what it is, guys. So that's my presentation.
Cool.
Man, that was fucking awesome. I'm not ready to deny Christ yet, but man, we really appreciate your time. That was super fascinating. You were fucking super knowledgeable, and yeah, brother, we'd love to have you on again. You have so many interesting topics, man. Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate that, brother. I'll include all your I'll try to go and find your links. Do you have like a link tree or something? I'll try
No, I don't have a
to
link
find all
tree.
your links and
Just find me on social media if you're interested in the books, basically.
awesome. We appreciate you, brother.
Be in touch.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.